Hello and thanks for coming to check this out. So for this guide we are going to look at how to make this shape confetti animation in Motion 5. I'm not sure exactly the right way to explain this animation. For me it's a confetti bursting or spilling. So we'll look at how to do this with emitters and replicators and Motion's basic shape tools. And then I will quickly cover some of the steps that I use to make these logo reveals. So this project file you can download from the link in the description. I have all of the shapes ready for you to use, and I've put in some of the elements of the logo reveals as well. So you need to be running Motion 5.4.1 to open the project file. If you're running an earlier version, then you can still follow along really easily by just using Motion's shape tools to make your own shapes and then follow along the steps. If you're going to do that, I'm just using 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames a second here. Okay then, so let's jump into the project and see how we put it all together. To get started, I just saved the project file as another project, and I took out every other element, just leaving the shapes group and this solid background here. So these are the shapes that I prepared for you to work and play around with. They were all done just with the Motion's shape tools or the Bezier tool. So if you're making your own shapes, you'll see I've made big shapes here because I just find it's easier to make bigger shapes than what you need and then scale them down rather than trying to make little small shapes from scratch. So let's grab this square with just the outline, and I'll turn off all the others. So with this square selected, I'll choose Make Particles, and then with this emitter here, okay, I'll come and make a new group, rename it, and I'm going to drag the emitter into the new group. Then come into the inspector and reset the X and Y to center it. So there's our emitter running now. Let's come into the inspector, leave it at point, emission angle at 0, emission range 360. Okay, turn the birth rate down to 0. We want the initial number at 5, life to 3, then speed 500, and speed randomness at 350. Make sure your playhead's in a position where you can just see everything for now. Okay, angle 45 and angle randomness 20, then scale 20 and scale randomness at 10. So if I run the project, then you'll see our particles are going to speed right off the canvas there. So what we'll do is to slow them down to stop, we'll grab the emitter there, select the emitter, come into behaviors, choose simulations, drag, and set the drag amount to 2, and then make sure that effect subobjects is checked, that it's on. So now our particles will fly out at their speed, but they'll be brought to a halt. They'll ease into a stop. And it's not really necessary, I think, but I'll just trim the drag behavior to 3 seconds in the playhead, which is where the particles are going to end their life. We don't want the particles to just be dropped off the screen there, so we'll come to the square cell here, come to opacity over life, click here to add a stopper, select that stopper, bring this slider down to 0, and this middle tab, bring that up toward the black stopper until it's around 90% here. So now the cells will speed out, ease into a stop, and then fade out. Okay, then select the emitter. Let's also come into the behaviors menu, choose the particles menu here and select spin over life, and then choose increment type birth and death, and we'll go to spin at birth, some big number, let's go for 900, and spin at death, let's go for 0. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that'll do, and then I'm going to trim it. Again, I don't think it's necessary, just for housekeeping's sake. Okay, I'm going to select the source, the cell, sorry, not the source is down here. Select the cell, and I'm going to click random seed a couple of times to try and get a more varied distribution. Okay, I'll stick with that. Okay, so that is the base for the emitter done, and what we want to do now is add more shapes. So here's what we're going to do. Now, I'm not an expert on emitters at all. If you want to learn a lot about emitters, then I recommend Ripple Training, which will give you a good foundation. So to add more shapes to this emitter, here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab the cell here and duplicate it. Let's duplicate it 4 times. And then let's just grab another shape. So I'm going to grab the circle and drag it in to take over as the source for this cell. And I'll just rename it circle, and I'll click in random seed to give it a different distribution. Okay, that'll do for now. And then let's do the same with this cell here. So I'm going to drag in this filled square. Click around to give it a different distribution. That will do. And let's have this cross. And then let's have this triangle shape. Right, let's play that. Okay, that will do. So the next thing we want to do is add some color. In the project file, I think all of your shapes are going to be white. When we're working with emitters, we're using a source, and we want to make sure that the source for the emitter is white so that later on we can colorize effectively. So I'm going to grab this square here, and for color mode I'm going to choose colorize, and if you see in the canvas, then we get an exact match for the color that I choose. If I was to, okay, let's drag in this blue shape to this circle cell here. See, it's coming up blue. Now if I use a colored source for the cell, then you'll note there's a mismatch between the color I want and the color that I get. Sorry, I'm doing the wrong one. Grab this cross. Okay, so you'll see that there is a mismatch between the color in here and the color that you see, because it's mixing with the blue color of the source. Okay, I'll just undo all that. Right, so back to colors. So with the circle, colorize, and let's give it that, and the fill square. And the cross. And the triangle. And I'll just turn on the background there. And so there we have our beginnings of our shape confetti. I think actually the less colors you have, the better sometimes. So that is the foundation for the shape confetti. There's another thing we could do is to give it some scale over life. So if I select the emitter here and I come to behaviors, I could choose particles scale over life. And let's see, you can see here scale at birth, it's set to 0, scale at death 100, and so they're going to scale from 0 to 100%. That might be an element that you like to use. I'll add it to the emitter here and I might play around with it later, but for now I'm just going to turn it off and leave it like that. So now what we want to do is add the wriggly lines that will wriggle out alongside of the main shape burst, and to do that we're going to use a replicator. I'll add a new group to the project and call it Replicator, and I'll just close these other groups and turn them off for now. So with this replicator group selected, I'm going to turn on the grid view and grab the Bezier tool here, the pen tool, and just click in here and come up and down to the same point in the y-axis, and then up again here. I'll just turn off the grid view and select that path I just made. I'll rename it to wriggle source. In the inspector, in style, we'll just make sure fill is off and outline is on. We can set the width to say 12 and make sure the outline color is white so that we can colorize easily later on. Start cap and end cap we'll set to none. I'm going to select the shape's anchor point and move the anchor point just past the end on this side there. And now I want to select edit points. I'll just zoom in so you can see what we're doing here. This point here, I'm going to select that and make it smooth, and then just pull this handle down to give this strut here a curve. And on this side I'll do the same thing, curve it up this way, and now we can just set these two to smooth. So now we get this wriggly shape. With the playhead at 0, make sure your shape is selected. Drop the last point offset value to 0 and set a keyframe. Then bring the playhead forward to 20 frames and bring that value back to 100%. I'm going to grab this curve here and set that interpolation to Bezier and break the tangent on this handle and pull it, holding the shift key here. I'll just pull it back this way. So now over 20 frames it will draw on. Now bring the playhead to 10 frames and set a keyframe for the first point offset, and then bring the playhead to 1 second and bring that first point offset value up to 100%. And I'll just grab this first point offset and I'll just turn off the last point offset. Grab this first point offset and set it to Bezier, and I'll do the same thing as I did before. So we have this animation drawing on and drawing off, erasing off over 1 second. Okay, so that is the source for our replicator. I'm just going to zoom back out now. And so I'll select this source shape and I'll hit L to replicate it. And like I said with the emitters, I'm not at all an expert with replicators. If you want a full breakdown and guide to replicators, you can't go wrong with Ripple training. I say that a lot, but Ripple training will really give you all you need to know about replicators and emitters and everything else, motion as well. So let's move on. So what I'll show you now are the steps that I worked out. It's just the best way that I found so far to make the wriggle shapes to match the confetti emitter. There might be other better ways to do it. If you know better ways, please let me know. I'd love to hear the alternatives. But what we'll do now is we've got this replicator and I'm going to set this shape to circle. And we're going to make that an outline arrangement there. We'll leave the radius at 200, points we'll leave at 5, and come to a line angle here. And if we move the playhead, you can see that it draws on from this point. So we're going to take this angle parameter and adjust it until they all kind of stand up on their bottom end. So now we're drawing on and erasing off from that point outwards rather than inwards. Let's grab this replicator and center it, and now we can turn on the emitter group to kind of see how they're pairing up. Not so good right now, so let's grab this replicator source shape, the one that's turned off, not the one here, the one that's turned off in the layers panel. Grab that, come into properties, and let's drop that scale down by 50%. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so we want to bring them in tighter now, so grab the replicator itself, come into the replicator panel in the inspector and bring this radius down to, let's go 80%, or if you're making your own shapes, yeah, your shape and my shape might be a bit different. Just have them have the radius around about here. And okay, then we want them to expand out as they erase off. So with the playhead at the start, we'll set a keyframe on that radius and then bring the playhead forward by 30 frames to 1 second. And let's add 100 to that radius, so we'll make it 180 here. So now the shapes are drawing on, erasing off, and spreading out. And they're spreading out to around about the same area as the particles will before they fade out. Right, let's grab this radius curve and adjust things a bit. Okay, that will do for now. Might be a bit sudden on that jump, so I'll come in and just pull that back a bit there. Alright, that's more the thing we want. So now we want to give this replicator some color, so just grab the replicator, come to the replicator panel here, come to color mode, we're going to go over pattern, and we will open up the color gradient here. Let's grab this first stopper here and choose the eyedropper tool to sample, let's say, the green, and then grab this stopper here and use the eyedropper to sample the pink, and let's add a stopper here and sample the blue, and grab this, add another stopper, click in there to add a stopper, and let's sample this yellow. So now we have the noodle shapes, the wriggly shapes, kind of matching up with the color scheme of the confetti. Okay, so now we will make another replicator just by cloning this one. So select the replicator and right click and add, choose make clone layer. We're going to grab the handle in the canvas and just turn it around a bit, say this way, and come into filters, come to color, and we could choose colorize, but I'm just going to choose, where are we, color, no, sorry, come to stylize and choose fill. And I'm just going to grab this and set that to white. So we have colored wriggle shapes and white to balance things out as well. This clone layer here, we're going to do some other adjustments. I'm going to come into properties and drop the scale a little bit, and also in the timing section here, if you can't see the timing section, just click here where it says show. We're going to make it slower by adding the speed, making that speed 80%. So we've got a slight speed difference with our wriggly shapes. Okay, that's kind of close enough to what I wanted to show you for demonstration purposes. We've got the emitter confetti, and we've got the, let's just drag this out point in a bit, and I'll leave the background off. So that's what we have for the shape spill confetti and the wriggly shapes, which gives us that confetti animation. So that is that for these steps. So the next thing I'm going to do is go back to the project before, and we'll have a look at some other things you can do to apply this confetti animation into a logo reveal. Just before we go and do that, let's have a look at one last very important step. I forgot drop shadows, so let's turn this background on, and now we can add some drop shadows to punch everything up. So let's grab this replicator, and I'll add a drop shadow straight from the main inspector properties panel here, and we'll do the same for the emitter, and for our clone layer as well. And that will really add the last finishing touches to this animation to make it stand out and pop. If we're going to use a white background here, then I might come in, grab this fill filter here and change it to something else. And I actually want to come in to this emitter. I'm going to grab that circle source and change that color from green to, let's say, another shade of blue. And so I'll grab this replicator and change that blue to this blue. I think that looks a bit better. Okay, so yeah, now let's go and have a look at how to apply this confetti into a logo reveal. So here we are back in the project file that we started with. This is the project file that I put up for you to download. So there's other elements in here that are there for you to practice making these jumping logo reveals and this collision logo reveal as well. So these jumping logo reveals, these are all elements that I've worked out how to do for myself over the years that I've been using Motion. So pretty much my own original idea that I'll share with you. This opening one here and this last one here, those are pretty much After Effects reproductions, and I put links in the description if you want to check out the source graphics. So I won't cover how to make those because it's not my own original idea, but I will share with you these things. So let's have a look at how to put everything together. First of all, let's have a look at this confetti group here. You'll see that it starts at 30 frames. So the first 30 frames are for the instigator elements to come in, and I've put them in this group up here, intro elements. So there's two groups, there's jumpers and colliders. Let's have a look at the colliders first. So it's just two circles that are riding in over motion paths, and they'll meet in the middle, and they're trimmed out right as the confetti group kicks in, which kind of tries to sell the idea of elements colliding and bursting into confetti. The other group I put in are these jumpers. There's a red one and a blue one for the YouTube, one for the Twitter. So let's just have a look at the YouTube one here. So this jumping animation, I won't go into lots of detail. There's a guide for how to make jumping elements in Motion 5. There's a link to that in the description, and you can go and check that out and figure out how they're done. But it's just a use of two parameter behaviors here, an exponential and a logarithmic. So again, over 30 frames, the element will come in and then the confetti will take over. So it's all about the third element really, and that's the logo. So there's the instigate element, either jumper or collider, then the confetti, and then the logo as well. So these are in this logo group here. Let's turn on the YouTube one. I put them in a group, just logo soft bounce in, and let's turn the YouTube one on. Is that right? Good to go. Okay, so here it is in the keyframe editor. You can see that it's overshooting, but I haven't used the overshoot behavior. I've just used traditional keyframing just for the look that I wanted. The overshoot behavior doesn't quite have the adjustments you need to get this look, so I just wanted to increase scale very quickly and then softly pull back to its final scale, and we can get that just with a simple overshot curve. So all about timing, 30 frames for the first element, then the next 30 frames is for the logo and the confetti. And that's that. So this project file is there for you to download. Sorry if you're not using Motion 5.4.1, you won't be able to open the file. But I think if you can see what I did there, it's not too hard to follow along and put your own one together. Okay, that's all for this guide. Sorry it did drag out quite a bit. I had in mind keeping this under 20 minutes, but there you go. Anyway, I hope this was useful for your future projects, and thanks for watching.